Hi, I'm Montgomery County Councilmember Sidney Katz. Up next on Parks, Rec and Roll, we take a field trip to a few historical sites in the county. They include the Gaithersburg Community Museum, the Gaithersburg Latitude Observatory, and White's Ferry. Stay tuned.
Hi, and welcome to another edition of Parks, Rec and Roll. Each summer, Heritage Montgomery sponsors Heritage Days, a weekend that celebrates Montgomery County's museums, parks, and historic sites. This time, we dropped in on 3 sites. First stop, the Gaithersburg Community Museum, which is located on South Summit Avenue in Gaithersburg. Originally opened in 1988, the museum is housed in a restored 1884 B&O railroad station.
The Gaithersburg Community Museum is a collection of historic artifacts, pictures, and information about Gaithersburg, its history. It's also a rail center. We have a steam locomotive, a caboose, and a bud car, also known as a rail diesel car. Railroad transportation was critical to the development of Gaithersburg as an actual city. So we have a little of everything. And they often were sent as postcards to family members when someone would travel. They would send it, and then they would have evenings sitting in their parlor. We like to think that community is the biggest and most important word in our name, so we try to reach out to all ages and have something for everyone. We have so many things that kids can touch and hands-on. 2, 9, 7, 7. And then it would ring and you would tap on the phone. And so a lot of the moms groups will meet up here. Our caboose has a lot of dress-ups, and the kids think it's great to dress up as a conductor or a workman or whatever. We also have developed a preschool program, or almost have it ready to market to all of the local preschools. So if they're interested in coming, they can call us and have a special tour.
I like to show them the historic things around here. They were asking me if the train's still working. I'm telling them not anymore. These are older models, but this is a historic area, and I grew up in this area, so I wanted to show them pretty much where we grew up from. Lots of different things.
Pretty cool. I like to ride the train because it always lets us go on the train.
And what about the loud noises it makes?
It makes big loud sounds.
What's it sound like?
Choo-choo train.
Aww.
They have a mix of things for children and families. There's interesting history in it, and then there's also activities for the kids.
It talks about what the brakemen did back in the old days, and what function the cabooses served for the brakemen and for the engineer.
We have our regular hours, which we're open and people can come in. That's Tuesday through Saturday from 10 in the morning till 3. But we do also special discovery days on themes and topics. We had one on stamp collecting. We have train days. There's a rocks and geology coming up. And we have our after hours, which is aimed at adults, which is a lecture speaker series through the winter, where we have people come in and talk about things, history and all. We've had live reenactment of a Gaithersburg resident from the 1800s. We've had different things happen, and it's a lot of fun. It's a community museum, and we have in the Bud Car, or RDC, a glass case. We call it our community case. So if anybody has collections of things that they think are interesting to the community at large, we have a form you can apply to have your collection shown in our community case at our community museum.
For more information, go to gaithersburgmd.gov and search Gaithersburg Community Museum. The Gaithersburg Community Museum also manages the Gaithersburg Latitude Observatory. Located in Observatory Park on DeSollum Avenue, the observatory is a National Historic Landmark. It tracked the wobble of the Earth.
Here we are at the Gaithersburg Latitude Observatory. The observatory building itself is right behind me. From 1899 to 1982. It measured the stars to learn something about here on Earth, the Earth itself. The site is one of 6 around the world on the same line of latitude. There's one in Cincinnati, one in Ukiah, California, one in Japan, Mizusawa. There's one in Califort, Italy, and one in Turkestan. The observatory building itself is normally not open to the public, but the park is. So the park is pretty much never closed and you're welcome to take walks, see the various monuments. So this is the inside of the Gaithersburg Latitude Observatory. What started this entire process, we had knowledge of some sort of wobble on the Earth's axis. The Earth kind of wobbles around its axis as well as rotating around it. But we didn't know exactly how much, and so these sites were built to measure that. So these 6 sites measured the Chandler wobble as it was known at the time, and it's now known as precession. A few reasons for why Gaithersburg was picked for this. Number one, it was along the same line of latitude they wanted to use for this study. The reason they probably wanted to use this line of latitude, and it all had to be the same line of latitude with different lines of longitude. One of the reasons they wanted to use this is because there was an existing observatory in Cincinnati, which is the same line of latitude, of course. Also, the first observer we had at this site lived in Rockville. And so it was really convenient not only for the National Geodetic Survey, so they could check up on it, but you could easily move the supplies with the train station. And then Edwin Smith, the first observer, was here, or basically in the area. He just had to move like a couple of miles. On top of all that, at the time in 1899, there was nothing here to pollute the light, so you could see clearly in the sky, which was great. This here is the opening for the Zenith telescope. This moves back. That, of course, you can open and close the roof as you wish. The Zenith telescope itself was an extremely sensitive instrument. At the time, it was an optical marvel. But the Zenith telescope, it barely fit in here. It was 400 pounds. It's long brass, I believe. It's that right here. Yeah. Exactly. Basically, at the beginning of the night, you'd align the Zenith telescope with that marker all the way out there. It points exactly south. We're aligning the telescope with the meridian, which is the north-south line. Goes through England, Africa, that sort of thing. After we aligned it there, north-south, we pointed exactly straight up to the zenith, which is exactly straight up, but we would observe pairs of stars over the course of the night at the zenith, basically. And because we had like 18, 20 different pairs of stars, and they all had to rise to the zenith before we could measure them and send these results. By the way, we sent them to Japan. Even in World War II, we sent them to Japan. The Japanese had their own data from the observatory in Mizusawa. They also got Italy's from Carlefort, Turkestan's, well, Russia's from Charjui. We got Cincinnati's and Ukiah's as well. And they would compile it to accurately model the precession of the Earth around its own axis. They did this every night the sky was clear. Very uncomfortable in the winter, I'm sure. Why it's all important. Without knowledge of the exact amount of precession, the precessing the Earth does, the wobbles around its axis, we wouldn't be able to send satellites up and down, we wouldn't have accurate GPS, and in the end, in 1982, when the site stopped being used, it's because we had satellites in the sky and GPS on the ground, well, also in the satellites, I suppose, but it's because we had these and they were more accurate for tracking this. So this laid the groundwork for these later technologies that we use every day and that are so significant to astronomy and even just defense, life on Earth. It's really significant nowadays.
Observatory Park offers a self-guided tour of the Latitude Observatory. It's also the site for star viewing events hosted for free by the city of Gaithersburg. For more information, go to gaithersburgmd.gov and search the Gaithersburg Latitude Observatory. Our final stop today is at historic White's Ferry. Located on White's Ferry Road in Dickerson, it boasts the only cable ferry boat that crosses the Potomac River. Besides the ferry, White's Ferry is a great place for recreation.
White's Ferry is a cable-drawn ferry that crosses the Potomac River from basically Poolesville, Maryland to Leesburg, Virginia. 5 a.m. to 11 p.m., 7 days a week, 365 days a year, barring ice or high water.
So the round trip is 15 minutes, one way 5 minutes at the most.
700 cars a day, weekends more like 12 to 1,500 would be a good guess.
Pedestrians and cyclists can ride the ferry as well.
It was a nice day, great opportunity to try the ferry out and make the trip back and forth across with the girls. First time that they've been out here on the ferry with us. So it was a great opportunity. Beautiful weather.
Yeah, it was a nice day to do it.
White's Ferry is also a nice place to spend the day boating, picnicking, or swimming.
Here at the ferry we rent canoes, we have john boats, picnicking, you can fish, put a boat in, just about anything you can think you can do on the water.
It's a great place to picnic, have a birthday party. We rent the pavilion. We just had a wonderful event yesterday. Poolesville Military Support Group honored over 100 military personnel that have been injured. And they came down, they did a fishing tournament and a picnic, and it was just fabulous. So I think it's just to come down and relax and have a quiet day is, I think, the best part of it.
We also run rented canoes up to the mouth of Monocacy, so you can paddle down in our canoes and you don't have to worry about the parking.
White's Ferry has an interesting history as well. Since the late 1700s, there has been some sort of ferry crossing here.
The ferry was created in 1851, I believe, and then it was just a single wooden barge that went back and forth across a rope.
The ferry was named after General Jubal Early, the Confederate general who came closest to reaching Washington, D.C. during the Civil War. R. Edwin Brown bought the ferry in 1946 with two business partners. He eventually bought them out, and it's been in the family ever since.
And then it switched to the ferry we have back there, up on the old ferry, which held, I think, 15 cars. And now we have this new boat, which holds upwards of 24.
White's Ferry is at the whim of Mother Nature and has seen its fair share of floods.
Hurricane Agnes was the worst one in '72. And they literally had a gentleman who was sleeping in the upstairs of that building, and they were yelling at him to wake up. Those windows were all, if you look at where the numbered markings are, he was up on the second floor of that building, and there was, a foot of water under his bed, and he was just sleeping away the night.
Wow.
The water had blown everything out of the building there. There were toilets in trees, just stuff, everywhere. It was pretty incredible.
The history is fabulous, Civil War, and just the atmosphere. It's just a great place to work.
The cost of a one-way ride on White's Ferry is $5, $8 round trip. Bicycles are $2, and pedestrians $1. There is also a restaurant and general store on site. For more information, go to facebook.com/whitesferry. That's it for today's show. Thanks for watching.